I'm able to confirm there are 6 victims, ages 67 to 88. All of them have been transported to local hospitals. This attack happened at a regularly scheduled weekly peaceful event. Witnesses are reporting that the subject used a makeshift flamethrower and threw an incendiary device into the crowd. The suspect was heard to yell, "Free Palestine," during the attack. The subject has been identified as Mohammed Sabri Solomon, and he's 45 years old. The FBI is processing the crime scene and the subject vehicle and interviewing key witnesses. We're assisting Boulder Police in providing technical, analytic, and additional forensic resources. As a result of these preliminary facts, it is clear that this is a targeted act of violence, and the FBI is investigating this as an act of terrorism.
Much for joining me here at Courageous Media. Wow, we have 2 big stories to talk about today. It's not going to be a real long show, but I did want to get to these 2 major stories. One, obviously not a good story. The other one, a major victory for freedom-loving humans around the world. Now, the first, obviously, is this attack in Colorado. This crazed anti-Semite who launched a makeshift flamethrower and Molotov cocktails into a group of peaceful Jewish octogenarians who regularly, weekly gathered to just point people back to the fact that there are still hostages of Hamas, be they dead or alive, in Gaza. And they just wanted to keep everyone's awareness that there are still hostages that have not been released. And they are met with utter and extreme contempt and violence and hatred. Now, you saw in that clip right there the fact that the FBI essentially debunked every single initial talking point of the propaganda leftist media. They started out with this attack in Boulder, Colorado. They did not mention that the victims were Jewish. They did not mention that they were octogenarians. You even had CNN putting peaceful in air quotes when they wrote their headline and their story. They wouldn't even confirm that a regularly scheduled, ongoing walk to bring awareness to Gaza hostages was allegedly peaceful. They wouldn't even confirm that when it's been regularly scheduled. It's been nothing but peaceful for weeks. And then they also said that the perpetrator was a white man. They have all scrubbed those stories from their headlines. But in all of this, their reporting has been utterly and contemptibly egregious. They tried to blame it on white men. They have not mentioned the fact at all that the perpetrator was an illegal alien, that he was here illegally because of the Biden administration, that he overstayed his visa. They were initially saying that he did not say what he said, which was free Palestine and death to Zionists. Now, their new tact is, well, this wasn't necessarily a terror attack. We just don't know yet, James. We're not sure. We need to delve into the evidence just a little bit more to determine if this could possibly maybe be a terror attack. As of right now, we're going to treat it as a crime scene. And it's just ridiculous. So we're going to dive into that story, and then we're going to dive into the victory, which is the election results in Poland. All right, so let's jump into this. So let's start with CNN absolutely clowning themselves as they label the FBI juvenile for essentially labeling this attack exactly what everybody knows it is. Let's check it out. Here we go. If you're in, please let us know you're here in the comments. Thanks everybody for joining. Really appreciate everybody rolling up to Courageous Media. Here we go. Oops, sorry about that.
comes out and says, we don't have 2 + 2 = 4 yet. In other words, this is obviously an anti-Semitic attack, and the victims were obviously part of that group. Therefore, we're not calling it terrorism. It adds a lot of it's not good for the community. It's not good for the potentially targeted community. It makes law enforcement look disorganized, and it makes the FBI look so juvenile. Like, why are you getting ahead of the police chief who says, I don't know what this is? It sounds, maybe it is what we all think it is, but maybe it's not. And he has no incentive to get it wrong. So we're going to take a step back, not be responsive to tweets by.
Well, let's be honest. The police chief of Boulder has every incentive to get it wrong. He is part of one of the most liberal cities in America. He was a police officer. Now he's the police chief, which means he is essentially a politician and a bureaucrat. And he has every single reason in his probably not too bloated paycheck, seeing as he's a police chief and not an actual politician. His job function is essentially politics and bureaucracy. But he has every single reason in his paycheck, because he is there at the behest of the city council and the mayor, who are all ultra leftists, pro-Palestinian, wacko leftists. So yes, he has plenty of reasons to not get this right.
2 heads of the FBI who don't have a long history in local law enforcement, and we will wait and hope it isn't what we all worry it is. And if it is, then there'll be an investigation. But that's like nothing I'd ever seen before. You normally, Andrew knows this, you normally get the local people getting way ahead on motive and the FBI saying, we don't have it yet. You now have the opposite here.
This is absolutely crazy. Before I dive into this, I want to play you just a snippet of the remarks, because the police chief got up there and gave 7 minutes of background information, but he answered a question from, I believe it was CNN. But anyway, he answered a question from a reporter who clearly asks him a loaded question. And that's what sparking this whole thing. So let's dive into that before we really dive into commentary.
A lot of witnesses were here.
The FBI is already calling it a targeted terror attack. Mm-hmm. Would you also refer to it as a terror attack?
So I've been in contact with our local FBI multiple times. We are in contact with them here. We are not calling it a terror attack at this point. Again, it's way too early to speculate motive. I know there's a lot out there on social media, but I ask people just to give us a little bit of patience while we work through a really complex scene. A lot of witnesses were here. We've taken them to another location to debrief them and interview them. As we do that, I think the picture will become more clear. But it would be irresponsible for me to speculate on motive this early on. We're only a couple hours into this thing.
So this is just crazy. First of all, the FBI obviously has jurisdiction in these cases. The FBI has already weighed in, and the reporter specifically asks the chief police, the police chief of Boulder, and gives them an opportunity to essentially negate or the FBI, to essentially be at odds with the FBI. And he does, because again, this is not, it's not Nashville, it's not Dallas, it's not, it is like Berkeley. It is one of if you rank like 3 of the most liberal wacko college towns in America, you would get Berkeley, Madison, and Boulder. And it's nuts. So he has lots of reasons to ingratiate himself with the ultra-fascist liberal politicians of Boulder, and lots of reasons to denigrate the FBI. Now, as we dive into this, so we've got CNN essentially trying to prop this story up, going, oh, look at local law enforcement. They didn't say it was terror. Okay, this is what we know. Now, let's all just, put on our thinking caps, shall we? Our common sense caps. Political Fisherman and Bob, thanks so much for rolling up. Really appreciate you guys being here. So this is what we know at the time that the FBI said this was a targeted terror attack. You can actually go back to the clip that we played at the very beginning of the show, where the FBI clearly says that this was an illegal alien from Egypt, an Arabic man who said prior to the attack free Palestine, and death to Zionists. He then launches into a crowd of absolutely peaceful people who are simply on a walk to raise awareness for hostages in Gaza with a makeshift flamethrower and Molotov cocktails. All right, so let's look at what an act of terrorism is by definition. An act of terrorism is when you use violence against innocent civilians in order to advance a political or ideological goal. All right, seems pretty simple, doesn't it? So, what do we have? We have an illegal alien Arab, most likely Islamic, but we don't know that, so that's just conjecture, shouting racist and political slogans, death to Zionists, free Palestine. At the same time, he uses weapons of mass destruction. Okay. A Molotov cocktail is like a grenade, right? It is a bottle filled with alcohol, thrown flaming into a group of people that literally explodes. A flamethrower, which is also an area effect weapon. So he's using weapons of, although limited, still mass destruction against innocent civilians while claiming racist and political / ideological slogans. Let me see. I mean, okay, is it really that hard to say this is an act of terrorism? It meets the obvious definition. Anybody with a brain and a pulse and an IQ over 5 can look at this and go, yeah, that's an act of terrorism. I mean, it's just utterly obvious, inherently obvious to the casual observer, as we used to say. So that's all the information they had at the time this buffoon stands in front of the media and denigrates the FBI. At the same time, CNN calls the FBI juvenile for saying the attack is exactly what it is, an act of terrorism. Let me have him. Rick, I'm with you. So, but that's not as bad as it gets. Realize that as bad as the media is on that one, as bad as CNN is, as ridiculous and clownish and stupid as they are, no. MSNBC says, just a minute, hold my beer. CNN says, you cannot get lower and dumber than we are in our coverage of the Boulder attack. And MSNBC says, just a minute, hold my beer. You've got to check this out. Because they let Jamie Raskin on their show, ultra fascist, communist goofball. Jamie Raskin. And here's what Jamie Raskin had to say about the Boulder terror attacks and just who is to blame. Mind you, it's not the Islamofascists. It's not the anti-Semites. It's not this particular individual from Egypt who is here illegally because of Joe Biden's administration. No, it was none of that. No, who's to blame for the Boulder terror attack? Well, you're going to have to hear it from his own mouth because you won't believe it if I told you.
Across the country, we are still in the midst of a gun violence epidemic. So we need to be acting with due concern for human life. I mean, this is why, of course, we have been fighting for a universal violent criminal background check. We are for a ban on military-style assault weapons in the country. Our lax gun laws are a danger to everybody in America, and that's something that we can act with some legislative determination to turn around. But people have got to lead their lives, and people need to act with courage, but it is the responsibility of government to try to keep everybody safe from random arbitrary violence and bigotry and hate-motivated crime.
Political fisherman Bob and Rick. I mean, maybe it just might be that I'm dumb. I mean, maybe I'm slow. Maybe I'm losing it in my old age. Were there anywhere in all of the reporting of the Boulder terror attack, did anyone ever mention a firearm? Anybody? I mean, did I miss it? Was there like an entire 5-minute segment on all of the firearms that this particular criminal terrorists used to attack the Jewish octogenarians? Did I miss that? Did I miss the AR-15s or the assault-style weapons or the military-grade firearms or the pistols, the handguns, the shotguns, the machine guns? Did I miss it all? Because if I remember correctly, there was not a single gun involved in this attack whatsoever. It was bottles of alcohol with flaming cloth in them and a homemade makeshift flamethrower. Color me reactionary. There was no firearms mentioned anywhere in that. Neither, and this, you can even go back to, if we all remember, the attack on Shapiro's house, the governor of Pennsylvania, when his house was firebombed. No firearms in that one, just Molotov cocktails or something similar, whatever they used to set fire to the house. So plenty of anti-Semitic terrorist attacks that have nothing to do with firearms. Jamie Raskin, you complete and utter imbecile. So MSNBC manages to outdo CNN once again. They absolutely own themselves. That is their reporting on a terror attack perpetrated by an illegal Arab alien in the United States, allowed here by the Biden administration, not kicked out when they had multiple chances to kick him out, now committing a terrorist attack on U.S. soil. And his blame falls squarely on you evil gun owners. You're the problem. You're the reason that a man threw Molotov cocktails into a group of Jewish octogenarians. I mean, it's absolutely unreal. So we've got that going on. If you don't, no matter how much you hate the propaganda media, I guarantee you it is not enough. They deserve your ire more than you can possibly know. They are utterly and completely predictable and dishonest, and they are in it for their globalist puppet masters. So now that's the bad story. But thankfully, we have two actual human beings with brains and IQs above 50 running the FBI. So I don't think we have to worry about this getting swept under the rug or any of that nonsense. They will be investigated. That man will go to jail for the rest of his life, most likely, based on the crimes that he has committed and the multiple counts of assault with a deadly weapon and all that good stuff. So either he gets deported to some very, very bad place or he goes to a prison forever. But on the good news, we had phenomenal news yesterday coming out of Poland. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have actually been to Poland quite a few times. We ran I did some missions trips there. I have a lot of good friends, Polish friends in Poland. I love visiting Warsaw and Krakow, and they're amazing, amazing place. But Poland has again defied the European Union. They are lining up with the likes of Italy, with the likes of the opposition party in France, Marine Le Pen's party. They are lining up with the AfD in Germany. But in this particular case, they won. They didn't come in second. They didn't just force a conversation. They won. So here we go. This is absolutely phenomenal news. I am stoked for Poland. I'm also stoked for the world because the nationalist civilizational movement is absolutely gaining steam around the world. So the Trump-backed nationalist clinches Poland's presidency. Karol it's Nawrocki, depending on, I believe if it's CKI, it's either Nawrocki or Nawrocki, depending on, there's a couple of different ways to pronounce it in Polish, but I would go with Nawrocki. And this is absolutely amazing. He has won the presidency. Now, in Polish politics, there is both a president and a prime minister. So he's not a president in as much as Donald Trump is a president. It's not a president like we think of him in a bicameral federalist structure. This is a parliamentarian structure. So he is the president, but there is still a prime minister who has most of the governing authority. However, what the president can do is essentially veto any of parliament's or the prime minister's actions. So what Nawrocki can do is absolutely bring the globalist agenda to a halt. He can't implement a nationalist agenda, but he can stalemate it until we get to a new set of elections for parliament and the prime minister, which is absolutely amazing. So check out this story. I thought this was pretty well done on the Polish elections. And then we're going to dive into Karol Nawrocki and kind of his personality and some of the speeches that he gave. But this is amazing, amazing stuff. Here we go.
With his Poland First slogan, Karol Nawrocki leaves little surprise for the future of his foreign policy. The Conservative can't be described as anti-European, but his win does represent a blow to the reform agenda of the pro-EU government. Polish presidents wield veto power on legislation, which can only be overturned by a 3/5 majority in parliament, which the government doesn't have. Nawrocki wants a withdrawal from the EU's Migration Pact and Green Deal.
I will not allow the security of Polish men and women to be threatened by illegal migrants, our economic and business life to be threatened by the introduction of the euro. I will not accept the new EU treaties will be signed and that Poland will lose its sovereignty in many areas of social life.
Nawrocki has also promised to favour Poles over other nationalities, including refugees from neighbouring Ukraine. Since Russia's full-scale invasion, Poland has spent more than 3.5 billion euros on assistance to Kiev, a figure that represents almost 5% of GDP. Nawrocki supports continued aid, but is against Ukraine joining NATO amid fear the alliance could be drawn into war with Moscow. It's no surprise Poland is so sensitive to the situation in Ukraine, sharing a border with not only the war-torn country, but also Moscow-friendly Belarus and the Russian enclave Kaliningrad. While it has the largest active military in the EU, strengthening Warsaw's own defences are also a priority for Nawrocki. Like his political rival, he pledged to allocate 5% of GDP to defence. It comes amid concern that Poland and Europe can no longer rely on the United States for protection. Earlier this year, the US said it would reposition troops that are currently stationed near the Ukrainian border in Poland.
So he is talking absolute sense. An end to the migration nightmare that the EU has strapped them with, an end to the Green New scam. Basically, no further NATO inroads for Ukraine, which absolutely produces a path to peace potentially with Russia if we can ever get those two on the same page. But this is absolutely phenomenal news for Poland. This is great stuff. Here's a little expose because one of the funny things about Karol Nawrocki is he was a boxer. So that was actually a big deal in the election. I guess it was a big draw because he's an actual man's man and not a simp. But this is amazing stuff. Check this out. And here he is talking about the next step.
Oppose illegal migration. We will stop the anti-American change in Europe.
Będziemy opierać się nielegalnej imigracji i będziemy opierać się antyamerykańskiej polityce w Europie.
Donald Trump! Donald Trump! Donald Trump!
So I love this because their rally, their political rally, actually turns into a chant for Donald Trump because the election of Trump has changed the world. It has absolutely shifted the balance of power in the world towards nationalist, civilizational traits. Countries are saying no to the globalist nonsense, to the post-World War II liberal world order that essentially was pushing us towards a global aristocracy. And they're saying, no. With America first, it's time for Italy first. It's time for Germany first. It's time for Poland first. So this is absolutely amazing stuff. And then they start chanting Donald Trump. This is good.
Donald Trump! Donald Trump! Donald Trump! Donald Trump! Donald Trump is not just a person, he's a symbol of freedom that will cover all the free world.
to nie jest tylko osoba, to nie jest tylko człowiek, to jest także symbol walki o wolność.
Here,
And that is absolutely true. The election of Donald Trump has paved the way for a lot of these nationalist, quote MAGA, because it would be MAPA, would be something different, make Poland great again, MPGA. But so Donald Trump's election has absolutely opened the door and run the red carpet out for nationalist civilizational movements to take hold in Europe and other places. And it is phenomenal to see that this is a growing snowball running downhill where we have the opportunity in the next 4 to 12 years, if we do this right, if the Republicans get off their butt in Congress and we do this thing right, to actually destroy the globalist administrative state establishment nonsense that is going on in the world. And I am all down for seeing that. Hey, I hope you take as much comfort and joy from the win in Poland as I do. I have friends there, so it's a little bit different for me, but it is absolutely great for all freedom-loving humans around the world to see this happen. Thanks so much for joining me. Exactly, Rick. No more globalist BS, 100%. Thanks, everybody, for rolling up. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share Courageous Media with everybody that you know as we try to get our channel back on track. Remember that God is good and he is sovereign. It'll all be good in the end. Till I catch you next time.